Come see us on tour. We're going to be in Baltimore, Hartford, Connecticut, Syracuse, Atlantic City, Levittown, New York, Cohoes, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. I told you there was 5,000 FBI employees out of their 13,000 FBI employees were hired or were directed to look into January 6th. 5,000, right? So Trump is now firing a bunch of FBI people, and there's a bunch of pearl clutching happening in the mainstream media and in the Democratic Party. And for myriad reasons, the FBI has been basically a criminal organization for most of my lifetime, and especially since 9/11. And their big thing is to entrap people, and they don't actually solve crimes or fight crimes. They spend most of their time entrapping people into crimes. But here's what CBS has to say about Trump's firings of the FBI.
The head of the FBI Agents Association is urging Congress to protect nearly 1,000 federal agents against potential termination by the Trump administration. The president of the FBI AA warned Congress, quote, displacing these rank and file public servants would create a gap in the FBI workforce that could be devastating to the FBI's mission.
What exactly is their mission? The answer just may surprise you. Or will it?
End quote. The letter is in response to a White House memo that went out on President Trump's first day in office. It mandated federal agencies to identify and assess the retention of all employees on probationary periods as part of efforts to overhaul government. For the FBI, that includes every active duty agent in the first 2 years after their graduation from the academy. The letter comes 1 week after the FBI Agents Association expressed concerns about possible retaliation against Justice Department employees who worked on cases connected to January 6th. Thomas Dupree joins me now. He's a former U.S. deputy.
Okay, so an article written by our friend Christian Parenti says progressives should cheer Trump's FBI purge. The Bureau bullied anti-war radicals like my father. The Trump 2.0 is battle-hardened and arrives with a wrecking crew and an aggressive plan to dismantle or weaken the key institution of America's unaccountable security state. This is good and necessary. The FBI has long and sordid history of framing people, disrupting, misdirecting, and destroying progressive social movements and blackmailing politicians of any persuasion. As a result, there are many who dislike Trump, yet cheer for him because they dislike the FBI even more. We are in the opening rounds of what will be a long and brutal confrontation over the right to enjoy authentic political contestation rather than a politics stage managed by men in black. Progressives who wish to preserve room for real politics and who know their FBI history should stand with the Trumpians in this tug of war. Well, let's bring in the author of that article, Christian Parenti, an investigative journalist, academic, and the author of several books, including Lockdown America, Police and Prisons in the Age of Crisis, and Radical Hamilton, Economic Lessons from a Misunderstood Founder. He's reported from Afghanistan, Iraq, Venezuela, China, and his work has been featured in an HBO documentary titled Fixer, The Taking of I can't pronounce that. I'm going to have him pronounce it. Currently, he's the professor of economics at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York City. Welcome back to the show, Christian Parenti. Hey, Christian, how are you?
Hey, Jimmy. Good to see you. Thanks for having me on the show.
So now I've been catching a lot of heat because I've been supportive of some of the things that Trump has been doing. I've been highly critical of others, right? I've been highly critical of his H-1B visa. Of course, his Gaza ethnic cleansing plan is a no-go and horrible. But I'm all for him dismantling USAID and doing whatever he wants to the FBI, including firing as many of them as he wants, because they tell us a little bit more why you're supportive of his position with the FBI.
Well, I'm supportive of his going after the FBI because the FBI is out of control for the better part of a century. It has targeted primarily the left, including organized labor and all manner of social movements. It's been very destructive. It hasn't just repressed the left, it's also actively engaged in misdirecting and confusing the left. And it's a real problem. It's not just that it's a nuisance, but it is a real threat. It is a cancer within American democracy. So I think this is a very important opportunity to deal with this rogue agency. And many on the left will say, well, you know, they'll just replace it with something worse or as bad. But we don't know that. And also, there's going to be an opening if they actually dismantle this thing or cripple it or you know, really attack it. You know, that's going to undo all sorts of you know, an institutional legacy, an institutional knowledge, which is unhelpful for democracy and unhelpful for progressive politics. So get rid of it and you know, pressure the government, pressure the Trump administration to make sure that there isn't some recreation of the FBI. Also, it's unrealistic to think that you know, you can recreate almost a century of something overnight. I mean, this is an agency with really serious momentum, a legacy of intimidating and bullying. So that's the kind of abstract reason, and more specifically, as I mentioned in this piece for Unheard, you know, my father, Michael Parenti, was a radical, again, you know, anti-imperialist, a peace activist in the 60s and 70s, and was targeted by the FBI, not as badly as members of the Black Panthers who were, you know, imprisoned and killed and stuff like that. But my father was beaten up pretty badly by the cops and harassed for a long time by the FBI, got his file, had a thick file. They bothered my mother, you know. So I was raised with these guys being the enemy, not in some abstract sense, but like rather tangibly. So that's why I'm in favor of removing these bullies from our politics, if possible.
So those are all great reasons, and that's why I also support what Trump is doing with the FBI. Now, there's lots of people who I respect in this space who just what you were talking about. They kind of just dismiss it, saying that Kash Patel is just going to replace those goons he kicks out with goons that are loyal to him and Trump. And as you say, we don't know that. We don't know. I always say, let's wait and see. And then when something happens, we'll assess and oppose it then. But you can't oppose. So you're just waving the white flag. We'll never, ever be able to do anything good with the FBI. And we can never have a reform. And of course, there's certainly lots of people in the establishment who hate Donald Trump and oppose him vehemently to the point of 2 assassination attempts. So he's definitely a disruptor. And so it bothers me to see people on the left just have a reflex and a hate boner, as I call it, for anything that Trump is doing. They just try to find out. And so do you feel the same way? Do you feel that kind of frustration?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel frustrated by that. And again, it's not that I like everything that Trump's doing. I mean, you named some of the things that are pretty awful, like this insane proposal to ethnically cleanse Gaza. But I also want to be realistic about, I don't see any other possibilities on the horizon for reforming the FBI. I don't think Bernie Sanders and AOC are going to have some sort of commission and have the institutional power to do a better job than this a couple years down the line. This is a rare and imperfect opening to deal with a major problem in American politics. And it's tragic that the left can't see its own history and its own interests going forward. They're just completely wrapped up in this Trump derangement moment now. And it's destructive too. It's not just annoying. It's very, very unfortunate because, I mean, lefties were out there defending USAID. Ilhan Omar, who had some pretty good votes on foreign policy when many others in the squad were voting for war credits and stuff like that. I mean, she voted against the funding for Israel's Iron Dome when AOC voted for it. And then there she is, defending USAID, which from the beginning, 1961 on, has just been a cutout for the CIA. I mean, in the first 12 years of USAID's existence, they actually had an Office of Public Safety that used to train police forces in third world client states, many of which were found to have been engaged in torture, right? So we have the left defending that kind of stuff. yeah, it's really disturbing. And now we just saw that Trump has said something about how he would like to have a tripartite agreement with China and Russia and move towards reducing military budgets by 50%. You know, I mean, the left needs to get in on that and push for that. But I imagine the left is going to oppose this. So yeah,
Well,
the FBI has been totally destructive. I mean, most recently, you know, it infiltrated the Black Lives Matter movement. There was an FBI agent provocateur in Colorado. That's what we know about so far. The guy shows up and he's claiming that he fought in Rojava with the radical left Kurds, and he starts handing out guns to people, selling guns, and immediately, you know, activists, important activists in this movement start getting gun charges, right? So it's like, this isn't also just about like, oh, in the 60s, they did this under COINTELPRO, right? They're still doing this to left activists. The left should be concerned with, you know, pruning this agency or dismantling it. One could go on and on with examples of the malfeasance of the FBI.
What do you say? So there's a lot of people. You mentioned USAID. I've heard a lot of people who are what I refer to as naive in the extreme, who think that that Trump and Elon Musk is just getting rid of USAID because they don't like the idea of them sending aid to poor people in foreign countries. Yeah, but what do you say to the people? Which is just it's laughably ridiculous and just naive in the extreme.
I mean, this is if we can pull out for a second. I mean, this is like Trump has tons of faults, but for his own reasons, he is making war on the deep state. The deep state meaning the intelligence agencies, elements of the security apparatus, the domestic police and the DOD, that, for rightly or wrongly, he sees that they have come after him. Many on the left won't accept this, but we now have significant evidence that elements of the deep state, particularly the FBI, did come after Trump by recycling the Russiagate, claims from the Steele dossier and really launching that whole thing, and then suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story. So all these are the reasons that Trump doesn't like the FBI. But it's not just about the FBI. He's going to go after this entire deep state because he thinks that they stole the election from him. And I think that that's right. The deep state, the FBI being part of it, is a very serious impediment to democratic politics and progressive reform and progress on achieving a more democratic political economy in this country. And this is our opportunity to undo some of this power. This is totally unaccountable power that has overthrown governments all over the world, not the FBI specifically, but like the milieu that it is part of,
the blob.
Deep state, the blob, yeah. And this is, you have to, as Rumsfeld said, right? You go to army not with the army. You go to war not with the army you want, but the army you have, right? I mean, you do politics not under conditions that you want, but under the conditions that you receive. And this is what's happening now. Trump has his reasons for going after the FBI. They're not my reasons. I get the impression they're not your reasons, but he has the power, and there's an opening here, and progressives could help shape this. But I think the progressives are probably going to turn against this. And so, going after the USAID was kind of like an opening act to create, a kind of like spectacle around this. And my one criticism of that would be that they didn't dump a bunch of documents, right? And crucial in Trump's attack on the deep state has to be, if it's going to be successful and if it's going to be done in a way that progressives can, I think, give it a progressive hue and, make something progressive out of it, is if there's massive declassification. Now, Kash Patel in his book said he wants to do that. He said he wants to set up offices for declassification that would run 24 hours a day and just like get the documents out there. And this, I think, is very important because a lot of this reform is going to have to happen in Congress. And while the Republicans in Congress are intimidated by Trump's power. And, I mean, he has more connection to their voters than they do. And so they all have to kind of go along with Trump. But they're going to act like they want to reform the deep state or dismantle it. But they're going to be, a lot of them are under pressure because the FBI and the CIA and other agencies have compromat on them, have been tapping their phones, have been sending, gifts and prostitutes their way and all this kind of stuff. I mean, this is something the FBI and CIA, they do this all the time. This is standard operating procedure, right? So there are going to be politicians that are intimidated. There are also going to be politicians that for their own ideological reasons are really loyal to these agencies, and they're going to act like they want to do what Trump's talking about, but they're probably going to slow pedal and try and sabotage it. What's needed to prevent that? What's needed to prevent Congress from sabotaging any effort to reform the deep state is a massive public awareness of what's going on, a massive open national discussion of the history of these agencies and the criminal things that they have done and continue to do. And that can only happen if there's really wholesale declassification, right? So hopefully Tulsi Gabbard can do that, RFK can do that, and Kash Patel can push documents out. Doge so far, its raid on USAID didn't do that. They're telling stories to us which do check out, but they're not providing the primary documents. You've got to go to usafunding.gov and look into it, and it's pretty hard to use. And you can see, oh wow, it's true. This is the USAID was funding EcoHealth Alliance and that sort of thing. But so yeah, I mean that's what I think is going on here, and that's what I think progressives, and not just progressives, that people who are concerned about this issue should be pushing for, is that the public needs to be part of this, and that's done through declassification and a kind of public history project of documenting, unpacking what these rogue agencies are doing and have done, and that'll then help build pressure on the political class to either pressure them and or give them cover to do what needs to be done.
So well said. And, there was no greater radical progressive than your father. I'm a big fan. We listen to his speeches almost weekly. That's
great.
It's just amazing. It's just such a wealth of knowledge and consistency you don't see very often in a public figure. And I just, you talk about it being, more than annoying, but destructive to see progressives just find ways to dismiss Trump's war on the deep state, just bending themselves in pretzels to find ways to dismiss it, instead of finding ways to, as Frederick Douglass said, I'll join with anyone to do right and no one to do wrong. So when Trump is doing something right, why not get your head out of your fucking ass and join with him and create pressure for him to do it the way you want to do done, like the way the progressive. Yeah. So there is an opening now for something progressive to happen, and so instead of having your reflex be your hate boner for Elon Musk and Trump and Kash Patel, why not actually have a thoughtful response to it and look at the reality that you go to exactly what you say. You go to war with the army you have, not the one that you want. And this is the army we have. So let's try to make the most out of it. And let's join with MAGA, because MAGA is all for this dismantling of the deep state. They're all for the dismantling of USAID and the FBI and the CIA. Here's what you say. The FBI is reeling from these early blows. But unless Trump and his colleagues are determined and systematic in their efforts, the security apparatus will regroup, shake off the dust, and strike back. And so what I'm urging progressives to do, people with a platform, people with influence, people with a voice, is to laser focus on this and not let this opportunity go by, and make sure that this doesn't happen, that the security apparatus regroups, shakes off the dust, and strikes back. That's what so here, I just want to, people talk about, so Trump's dismantling or the exposure of USAID and now the NED, Now he's defunding the NED, which is another great thing. I can't get over it that this is happening in my lifetime. Glenn Greenwald says those who failed or refused to see the massive opportunities from this Trump-led realignment and instead enslaved themselves to the broken, ossified, unimaginative status quo perpetuating the Democratic Party are some of the dumbest people on the planet. I couldn't agree with that more. Come see us on tour. We're going to be in Baltimore, Hartford, Connecticut, Syracuse, Atlantic City, Levittown, New York, Cohoes, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.